I am Jeff Ado. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane, and amid the whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. Nice one. That's great. My guest today is a very good friend of mine, Alon Greenstein. He is also the owner and purveyor of a restaurant called MeZé, which is here in Grass Valley. It is a Middle Eastern restaurant. It is the best Middle Eastern restaurant that I have ever been to. I would pit it against any other Middle Eastern restaurant in the world, okay? Not having been to all of them, but I think it's really fantastic and delicious. And so we're going to get into some details about the history of that restaurant, the philosophy that Alon has regarding that restaurant, because I think it's very unique and important and sort of like the next level of what we ought to be doing in terms of our delivery of food and consumption of food. I think you got it going on, Bia. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to get into that. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Yeah.
Right
a bit. Yeah, definitely. A bit shy, even I would say.
Yeah.
Like
Good.
To talk, and to be part of something that it can go public, viral.
Yes.
So
it's okay. Not that many people listen.
Yet.
Yeah.
Yet.
I mean, we're getting a lot of YouTube views, but whatever. It's,
I must say that I really starting to love this genre of how information is passed between people and in an authentic way that is intimate enough and yet telling. So not in secrecy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Out in the open.
Exactly. Out in the open.
Not mediated by anybody else either.
In the public.
Yeah, that's right. There's no, I'm not answering to the network.
Cool.
I am the
it's
network.
So, yeah, I'm down for a good talk about things in general and food in specific.
Yeah, cool.
And take just what I do, for example, because I'm going to talk about only myself.
Yeah. Good.
I have a direct experience.
Yeah, perfect. It's perfect. So great. So and by the way, just for you out there in podcast land, man, I've known Alon since I moved up here. He's one of my very first friends. And so I really am grateful for our friendship, and I consider you a brother of mine, and glad. Oh yeah, that's right. And we're elbow brothers. We both broke our elbows last year. I broke mine riding a one wheel. Don't do it. And then you broke yours a month later ice skating.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it. We both had the same surgeon. I went through all the same process that he did before. So that's another sort of unique bonding thing about our relationship. So, but one of the things that was first struck me so much about you is your restaurant, obviously, and it's a restaurant. It's called MeZé. It's in Grass Valley. They serve Middle Eastern food, and I'd love for you to just kind of take us through a little bit of like the history of MeZé, how you got going, and a little bit of what your philosophy is in serving people.
It's a big topic.
Yeah.
But actually it reduces into the next step, right? When you want to do something. So prior to MeZé and to when I came to the US, we lived in Costa Rica, and it was a spiritual village or a transformation center. Depends on your experience, but we used to call it that way, where we more concentrated about the inner journeys and the assembly of your inner experience into the group experience. And using different methods of ways, to explore the inner world through different techniques. And like I was in charge of the food there, and so we kind of build a concept of what supports best transformation. Right? So it's like what will give you the best energy so you can journey and come out, refined. So it has to do with cleanse and stuff like that, and what you eat and when, and So that was a really powerful experience. Also to see in a direct manner that how people react to food that they eat. Because if you really want to break it to really simplistic ways, it's a fueling station. You're hungry, like the body tells energy now. So where do we fuel? Chevron, Shell, which gas station?
Yeah.
Well, let's go to MeZé. Why MeZé? You come to MeZé. Why? Because it's tasty. It's a good add-on. I recommend go and eat tasty food. But that's not the crunch of it. I think it's the issue is the integrity of the food, and this is for some reason a lost art. It used to be different back in the days. That was quite a long time ago. So for us to make a living here when we came was pretty obvious for me that since this is what I do, I would do something with food. And we started with street food. That was the story. And then people were liking it. So we were just doing more of it, but still kept it very simple on street events, festivals, only local, like in the area and mostly in town. And slowly we gathered a crowd that were asking, okay, what about a restaurant? And like, it's big commitment, it's a lot of money, all that stuff. But then one of those street events in Nevada City, somebody came to us after and just said, you have something really good. Are you open to make something out of it? And he had the knowledge. We had the thing. And he said, I'll trade you. I'll help you create something. That'll be my price ticket for that. These are the options. And we said, yeah, let's go for it. That's how it started. So it's, in a way, a mutual creation of a few people that help to manifest, this fueling station that we call MeZé Eatery. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so just going back a little bit to the village in Costa Rica. So it was mostly you guys were doing a lot of plant medicine and that kind of thing down there?
No, that was a bonus.
Oh, okay.
The work was a lot of Osho-based groups. So that was the origin of most people who were there.
OSHA-based?
Osho, like all the stuff that you do. Osho used to develop in his time as a teacher, right? As a guru, like they like to call him. And there were a lot of ex-Osho people, especially in the beginning, that had the influence. And also Tioha I don't think he met Osho, and he got his experience of oneness after Osho died. But he was charismatic and authentic, and the best proof is just people start following him. Yeah, you don't need like bees to honey.
Right.
So yeah,
that's cool.
That's how. So this village was about this vision. I was an add-on because the food was always a challenge. So they decided to take it a bit more seriously and to create a hired position, which was one of the first in that village. And that's it. That's how it became what it became for me. Yeah. And they're still running the same concept until today, which is cool. Neat. 8-9 years after.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
And originally you're from Israel.
Yeah. South Africa. Originally, Israel was my childhood.
Okay. Oh, you were born in South Africa. I didn't know that about you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And my dad wanted to go to Israel.
Okay.
He's South African.
Okay.
My mom, she's Israeli and English Israeli. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Dad's South African. He got the Israel bug. Your mom was Israeli already. He was like, I want to go check it out. And then they just went and checked it out, and they were like, this is great.
They, by chance, ended up where I grew up because they had relatives and they came to visit and they liked it. And they stayed. And I think they were also not accepted in another place that they applied because of the style, I guess. Like my dad he had strong presence wherever he was. He was an opinionative guy with big presence that You had to contain him, I guess.
Okay.
In a way, something. So, but we ended up in where I grew up, which was amazing. The best childhood. I don't have any memories of anything ridiculous, just good childhood. Lots of friends, lots of playtime, not much indoctrination.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that, because I think it informs who you are and what you do, and kind of the community that you're building around MeZé, and also just the community that we have here. That was like Kibbutz Life, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not Jewish, all right? I ain't never been to Israel. You know what I mean? I'm not an Israeli, all right? I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. You know what I mean, originally. So we didn't have any kibbutzes around. So so I really don't. I mean, I know a little bit about, because I know you and I know some other folks, but for people who don't know, not me, of course, but for the people who don't know, maybe you could take us through, like, what was it like? What's it like growing up in a kibbutz? What is that?
Kibbutz it's like a tribe. I would say a tribe. It doesn't have a specific leader. It runs in a democratic way, but you can say social democratic, meaning like the kibbutz interest is the focus, and yet all the members have their rights.
And how many people are in the kibbutz?
Like, could go up to 600.
Okay.
All the population, like 250 kids, 250, and then you have all the members, and then 100 would be volunteers.
Okay.
So you can go to the kibbutz and be a volunteer. I don't know if still this program runs today. When I was a kid, there were people from all over the world constantly. They get a place to stay, food, maybe some pocket money. I don't know. Wasn't into money when I grew up, so I didn't even know. So, and they get to work and experience the community life.
And there are lots of kibbutzes in Israel, right? So
yeah, hundreds
of them. Okay, cool.
They were like placed, like you can imagine that when Israel was formed 70, almost 5 years ago, right? 48. So it's more actually. We are into, 77, 76, 77 years. So in order to establish dominance and ownership on land, you needed to put settlements. So I think this is the origin. So you can bring a lot of people that don't know each other, or came from a certain area in Europe or somewhere else in the world, give them a place and say, we need this place, a stronghold, create a village here. We will give you this land to work the land. You will have this autonomy. This is the structure. It was given as a concept, and many people didn't have any choice at the time, because Second World War created such a havoc in Europe. And so many people were just like displaced from Germany. Many were just leaving because they figured out that, well, we don't get along with the Germans and they don't get along with us. We better leave. There was good arrangement, so you could deposit and then buy in Palestine, then buy land and equipment with your deposit. You had like credits. This way, everybody wins. The Germans get the Jews out. The Jews still keep their property in a way, or use their property instead of losing it. So many people will just literally run away from a ridiculous reality of war, and ended up in Israel and made life, because there was an agenda in place and there was some forces creating this country. That's, in my later life, I started to learn. We see in medicine a lot people do like a shadow work, right? So in reality, research is shadow work, because you learn about the shadows and the forces that are not in the front, that actually, how do you say, manipulating, manifesting, or creating the reality.
Or making money.
Well, we'll get into that topic. It's all related, but definitely that's a big player in the game, a big reason.
But in terms of like just sticking to the kibbutz.
So it was really easy, because you get 30, 40, 50 people, 60, go for it. Many of the places were deserted because it happens that the Arabs who lived got the memo to leave, because the 48 war was all about, we're going to kick these young settlers, Jewish people, European, away into the sea, and we get Palestine back, or we'll get the territory back. But the other way around happened, right? So like where I grew up was on a deserted village. I don't know the story why they deserted. I've never really met anybody who lived there. You know, they all probably run away to Jordan, Lebanon, or Syria, and you never meet these people.
Right.
They might hold a grudge for probably a good reason, but you know, this is a story I was told. Now I discovered that many of the stories that I was told were not necessarily true, or were not the catalyst that created or manifested the situation at the time.
Yeah.
So kibbutzim were really good and really served the point of stronghold, community. You can actually infuse into a new group of people from everywhere, and you give them purpose, land, home, new life. Now you just put the concept on them, and they will make it.
Yeah.
But you don't even have to come up with the details, because people will always strive to do good for themselves.
Right.
So it was a really unique, I think, experience in the human experience, done by usually very capable people, because as a nation or race, they were always educated. Like it's part of the tradition.
Sure.
Of the Bible and the language. There's a lot of what we call da'at, which is Jewish thinking into the day-to-day scenarios. You know, we call it the mitzvah, to do, not to do. So it's all infused. Even if you're not religion, you're still living that mindset. So
yeah,
some kibbutzim morphed, and some today stayed original. Depend on if they had a good theme that was not only just to create a settlement. You know, you have to have something deeper that evolves. Where I grew up is an amazing place. They're not religious, but they celebrate life like a tribe.
Okay.
And everybody who, like, not my class, but the place is full of what you call returning sons and daughters. So people, you know, grow up, go look at the world and say, okay, the world is great. I want to go. I'm going back.
Yeah.
So my village is now huge with sons and daughters who came back and said, I've seen everything. I want to still do it here.
That's great. That's beautiful.
Like let's say,
yeah,
that's what I think is the best testimony to the greatness of a place.
And so, and obviously so not only did you develop kind of a sense of community there, and it sounds like, from what I know about the Kibbutz life and what you've explained, it seems like, you know, everybody's raising all the children kind of together, and you're all working together as a community.
I was more like what I said. You still had your rights. So again, we look going into systems, and you know, the Bolshevik socialist system was, you had no rights. There's only the proletariat, there's only the state, and you're serving the state. The state will protect you, right? But you have no rights. The you can say the way you call it, the socialist, the one who's said, yeah, we need social rights, but we have individual rights, and you cannot give them away. So my kibbutz was of that kind. Like, we slept at home, not in the kindergarten. Like, the parents were in charge of the kids.
Okay.
We had mutual, you and I was always with the same people of my age. You know, we were like 8 or 9 in my class. There were classes of 22, 27, 15, depends on how much shuging, you know, happened in the night during this year. You know,
right.
If people made kids or not. Usually you have wars. In the wars, there's a lot of kids made. Because of so many reasons, you know, he comes back home from the field, maybe it's the last time, let's go for it, whatever, right? There are reasons, you know, there are 2 different reasons, classic. One, the unseen, which usually governs the situation, and then the chosen, the seen, the conscious. But we are like 595. This is a normal human being. 5 conscious, 95 unconscious. So
Yeah.
you have to look at things and understand that there is choice, but most of the time people react. They don't respond.
Yes. Most of the time.
Yeah. And
we keep coming
the art of life, right?
back and back to that. My last podcast was all about neurosovereignty and how much neurosovereignty, and how much we're just constantly in reaction versus responding. And I think that's like a common theme of this podcast is how do we get to a point where we're actually responding consciously versus and noticing the fact that our automatic tendency is always to respond unconsciously, to react rather unconsciously.
And language is a big one.
Yeah. And so then how do I, raise above?
Can I comprehend what's going on, or am I just understanding?
Right. Yes.
And when you understand, it's partial.
Yeah.
The word comprehend means...
Right. Or as Marley used to say, overstand.
Yeah, overstand.
How do I overstand?
And then you can segue to, I call it outformation and information. So like subjective information, outformation, objective. And relating to these two differences when we communicate and also when we take it in.
Yeah.
So there's like guard your mind.
Yeah, that's right. Guard your mind. When you're reacting when it just doesn't feel right. Usually it's when you're triggered, and you're just reacting and you feel like that's normal, but underneath it, your head's going, that you're reacting, that you're responding when you feel a sense of ownership and acceptance over your whole being and all of the things that are impacting you. But to get to that level of awareness is really challenging. I mean, for me anyway, it's like I have to meditate. If I meditate, then I have like a shot at getting it. If I do medicine work, then I have a shot. If I have conversation that's enlightening conversation about the very fact that, we're constantly being triggered and we're constantly reacting, then I have a shot. And I feel like very much, and maybe this is just the nature of reality and the nature of human life. It's that like we're constantly being bombarded with things that we are reacting to. It's almost like we're at war with ourselves, with reality, with what's going on.
A lot of outformation, trying desperately to make it information in order to sometimes just infiltrate and subjugate the mind and perception, which is the relative experience of everything that comes from outside to the inside. So it's all about perception and outformation, information. You can take "I'm hungry" as an example, right? What governs your choices? Is it outformation? I'm just hungry. My body is signaling now. Something needs to make me choose.
Yeah.
So a
McDonald's.
commercial.
I saw the Big Mac so many times. I'm gonna go to McDonald's. Not whatever. Go McDonald's.
Exactly. But, or do you start thinking, interesting. When was the last time I ate? Am I really hungry? So you're doing like a testing.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, body reacting. I'm not my body. So you can kind of like create meditation, or even I would call it silent separation between action and receiving. So you're already in the choice, because it's very debatable if there is even any choice.
Yes.
But it seems that there is a choice.
It seems that there is.
And yet things are so ridiculous on the other side that it seems like so many things are happening without real choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this fine line of understanding which is which and where should I hold my ground. And so I think in terms of feeding yourself, first of all, ask yourself, is it an expense or am I investing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you're investing, because you are what you eat, I suggest you apply some thinking onto your decisions and not just like sugar now,
right?
Because your guts are hungry for sugar because they did not get their shot,
or
coffee or whatever you are so used to as a cycle,
Mm-hmm.
because it's all about rhythms and cycles. So whatever goes into rhythm and cycle, you can assume it's in your unconscious already in a rhythm and cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It's built in the pathways. We talk about neuro freedom, neuro independent,
Neuro sovereignty.
neuro sovereignty. So once the pathway is created, it demands, because it's all placid and it morphs according to
What you're giving it.
exactly what you're feeding it.
Mm-hmm.
So feed yourself as a sense of I am in this body,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my temple. So maybe there is one guy who comes to MeZé every day for a few years now. Every day. He's my
He's your Jared?
he's
The guy from Subway?
He's amazing.
Sorry, I shouldn't bring that guy
and
up
the
because he turned
same
out to be
things
kind of a
every day.
douchebag.
I'm so admired of that, and I understand
Huh.
it, because his choices are like, I just want to go where my body feels great.
Huh. That's
It's
really
the
cool.
same.
You talked to him about it. Has he like lost weight? Has he gotten
No,
healthier?
it's the same all the time. You know,
Okay.
it's like that's his
He's
thing.
just into it.
Every day he comes in and he does his meal, and it seems to be super satisfying.
Yeah.
But I eat
We
there
should
every
get a
day.
testimonial from
Yeah.
this guy. Really?
So you can apply freedom in everything you do if you pause for a moment
Mm-hmm.
to actually give yourself retrospect and
Yeah.
to challenge yourself, because everything automatic will not like to be challenged,
Yeah.
and that's the rule of
Mhm.
motion. But if you want to stop the motion and divert it, you need to first say, in a way, no, right?
Yes.
Which is that what the Buddha says, that things are in motion all the time,
Mhm.
anicca. But if you're just not doing anything, you're just observing it.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, you can choose, not necessarily from a reaction, but maybe from self-wisdom that is
Yeah.
based on experience.
From
and
an actual choice.
like, wow, pizza is really, I love pizza, but every time I eat it, I really, so
Tired.
yeah,
I
tired.
find that
and
I'm getting fatter,
grumpy and
you know.
bloated. So
Beer, same thing. Used to love beer.
yeah,
It's sad. But anyway, that it's
Yeah,
so
and
delicious.
that's
and yet
also
so bad for you.
seems to be kind of ridiculous that it's that way.
Yeah.
That that people who run their business with this mindset, like me, super organic, are the
Exception.
odd, the exception.
It is. It's really
And
so
we need special, like, yeah, exactly.
So I want to talk about that because that's part of the reason why we're here. I don't think I've talked about this very much on this program, but I got a tox screen. I've been seeing a nutritionist. I have some like gut issues. I have SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which if you don't know what it is, it's great. It's really fun. It's a fucking barrel of
SIBO.
laughs. All right. It's just, you get super tired. For years, I was having these symptoms. I would eat something and then I would be so tired, I just need to take a nap for like 10 minutes or at least. And then I would get acid reflux, and it was so much about my diet. And then going back a year and a half ago, I started working with this nutritionist and doing like more of a keto diet and just cutting out carbs and a low FODMAP diet, they call it. And then I did a tox screen to see, because she was like, it's not going away. It should be going away. You should do a tox screen to see what your toxic burden is.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of toxic burden. I have really high glyphosates, which comes from Roundup, which is in all
They spray on
foods.
everything.
They spray it on everything, and also it's
in around everything.
If you eat meat, which I've eaten a lot of growing up in Nebraska, you could imagine, you're eating meat that ate Monsanto corn.
Mm-hmm.
And that Monsanto corn is full of glyphosates.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get it in your blood system. I have huge levels of DETP, which is a pesticide, another pesticide, like astronomical. I'm off the charts. It's scary. And they link that pesticides to Parkinson's, which my dad died of. So
how do they get away with it?
I don't know.
Because it doesn't kill you on the spot and you cannot prove causality.
Right.
So, and then it begs the question, excuse my language, who give the fuck? The point is, how do we are even allowing stuff like that? Well,
that's the question. That is the question. And so part of, for me, like my mission, I also have huge levels of thallium, which I think is from smoking, and barium, which I don't know what the hell is from. Apparently, they put it in the
spray a lot of
sky.
barium.
They've actually admitted that they spray it in the sky.
Yeah.
So I'm not like saying anything that's not
Barium,
admitted.
stratnum, mercury.
So I had
there's a few
huge
more.
levels of barium because I lived by Santa Monica Airport, so a lot of the smaller planes were flying. I don't know, man. That's my theory. I will say that I did this whole detox program. Now, so many of those things have gone down. All of them have gone down almost, except for one, like some of the mycotoxins, the molds. But I'm keenly interested. Like it's caused me and my wife to be super discerning with what it is that we're eating. All the food that we get is organic. We shop at the Briar Patch or the farmer's market or wherever, to get totally organic food. And we eat at places like MeZé because it's so important to eat organic. This is your offering to the world, right? This is you serve this food to people because it's important that you give people something that's good for them and going to be expansive. So let's just talk about the positive moral call, if you will, for you to serve the food that you serve the way that you serve it.
I think I call it a no-brainer. Because whenever you have issues, and I also had issues with my gut a long time ago, but I had to cut carbs completely for a very long time. And I was diagnosed with this and with that, and just sent me through a journey of, okay, food is really important. I have to be much more conscious of what I put inside. I am what I eat. So kind of like my journey, I developed a lot of stuff that I used to kind of try out that is gluten-free, that is carb-free, that is on people a lot in groups, seeing that this food works, this food gets them heavy and sleepy. And so in Costa Rica, there was like, we had no sugar, no flour, no milk, no meat. So it was like a vegan, a lot of coconut stuff, a lot of...
Yeah.
So everything was done to make it light for the body. Although I do eat meat, and I have like my opinion about food is not so much what you eat in that sense. Like the philosophy is like that whatever you eat is authentic and full of life force. So and then you go into what happened? How come it doesn't? This Monsanto corn doesn't have the life force. It works, but it's definitely not what's supposed to feed this perfect mechanism that is called the human experience.
I love it when you say I'm
so
perfect.
It
That's
works,
nice. Say it some
but
more.
what's the price?
How perfect am I? Let's talk about
exactly.
it.
Exactly. So it's kind of like whenever you eat it, you become less, because what it adds toxicity, and the whole journey of health is reducing toxicity and cleaning it out. So that's how healthy you are.
Yeah.
You're able to remove the toxics that you consume, some by choice, some not by choice, like in the water with fluoride. That was a poison that they could not get rid of 150 years ago and 120 years ago, and now it's in the water, in toothpaste. I'm like, who made these decisions?
Yeah.
Oh, there was an infiltration. And the infiltration happened into where the entities are supposed to filter initiatives, right? Oh, I have let's do graphene oxide water treatment. That's the new technology they're developing. Okay. Terrible. Nanotechnology. We don't have in our body even the right filters to deal with nanotechnology, especially not on the graphene level, and which known to be the assembly blocks to the AI system they're trying to inject into people. And this is proven. Nothing I'm saying here is my invention. It is my opinion to use it as information. So it's an outformation that I could see unfolding. So in a way, our filtering system is broken. But you can go even deeper than that, because it's based on worldview. Do you know where you live? Why are you doing what you're doing? You're trying to come with something that will be unique okay, so food, there was no Middle Eastern food here.
There was no Middle
Which
Eastern
was
food
considered
here.
to be,
Yeah.
for I think a good 10 years and more, like the best balanced diet
Uh-huh.
to eat, because the ratios between carbs
The
and
Middle Eastern diet,
Yeah,
ladies and
it's
gentlemen.
more- yeah,
Get
it's
into
more-
it. It's good for you.
it's good for you.
Very
But
good.
The point was more, I think, the combinations and freshness, especially the classic Palestinian Arab
Mm-hmm.
kitchen, which is what do you say? You go out and you collect weed. What do you call that? Like different herbs, and you bring these to your kitchen and you cook with it. Like za'atar and parsley and all that stuff that grows out on the hills in the Galilee. So this level of, it's not only freshness, it's life energy into the food. So
that also comes from the land on which you live, that's nearby
everything,
you,
exactly,
etc., which is really important.
Local, exactly. So it was kind of like a no-brainer because nobody was doing Middle Eastern. That's one thing. And then nobody was doing enough organic. And knowing what I know already about the food industry, I came to understand that people want to have choices. We didn't have choices.
Right.
There was very few places you could go and eat clean food. And if you're sensitive, that's it. Now we have a gluten-free place. We have MeZé. We have a few more places.
A couple organic restaurants.
Yeah, people are getting it. I'm surprised people are not getting it more.
Yeah. And it's sad that the restaurants that exist aren't kind of following suit. Like, I'm much more conscious of it now because of you being my friend. Like, there's a lot of restaurants in town that I also love going to, but then some of them, like, I don't go to as much anymore because I know the ingredients that they're using are not organic.
It comes to not feeling good after.
Right.
Many times. And you think like, okay, my best way that people describe, the best compliment for the food we make is like, I feel so good after eating the food here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like even more important than taste, because taste is very specific and subjective, but feeling good, you create a vibration, in and out. And it's not the experience when you go in and out. It's somewhere that I care less about what they put in their food, and the flavor can be amazing.
Yeah, it can taste delicious.
Yeah.
Look, an In-N-Out burger with French fries, animal style, and a Coca-Cola. Man, that's so good tasting.
Like Neil's likes it,
but
satisfying.
Like
but
a half hour later, I'm like napped.
You're knackered.
Nap City.
Yeah.
I'm knackered and I'm fat. I mean, that's like.
So what's lacking there? It pretends to be with nutrients because it gives fake notion to whatever sense of fullness. So you consume sugar and complex carbs that have no life force. Even if they had a little bit, they were stripped of, or they're full of toxics. Why? Because they grow in an environment that they can take. So when the plant can take the spray, it means it absorbs it.
Yeah.
That's why you're eating so much of it. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. So and people are like, duh, and is that like the major thing that we should be thinking about when we a technology like that?
Yes. Well, I mean, so you touched on this a little bit earlier, and I happen to have done quite a bit of research into like the Aggra Bus Cartel and how that's all worked out. Monsanto, ADM, fixing prices and also getting it past the FDA and then buying up all the little small farms.
Yeah.
There's no conspiracy about this. Go to any farmer in America. Like, this is the reality. I'm not talking about aliens. This is just what it is, in my opinion, it is unchecked capitalism. It is violation of the antitrust laws in this country that we had so that we would protect small businesses and small farmers, that because businesses started getting enough money that they were able to lobby governmental agencies like the Food and Dork Administration, like that they would just get them to pass all these things that were terrible for human beings because they're going to make a lot of money so they can make more money. And then at some point, like, the soul of the humanity of the people in this country, in the world, really got lost because of unchecked greed, really. And it's something that we have to unwind or not. Like, it's killing us.
I look at it in a different perspective because you have to apply reason also when you look at the nature of evil. You cannot assume that is just greed. Greed is part of it. I mean, being greedy is one of the most hideous characteristic of a
hideous.
human experience.
That's good. I like that word. Fucking hideous.
Yeah, it is. And it doesn't, it's a hole with no end, right? A well with no end to it, because it's based on parasitical state of mind.
Yes. A parasite that will never be satisfied.
A parasite is something that, in his most basic assumption, the host is just in service to him until he moves to the next one.
Right.
So it's a funny thing, because I'm thinking about Earth, right? So if we have parasites on Earth, we know that we're familiar with parasites. And we know that the best way of defense is not being noticed. And yet, from the horse's mouth, we know that we've been infiltrated. And I'll use the word, we have infiltrated the cabinets. Canada, US, France, Israel, Argentina, just you name it. Unbelievable. Infiltrated. And this infiltration of, again, we talk about filters, infiltration. So once they have their hand on what we call the check and balance apparatus, and they control it, then who's checking what and for what purpose? So I think there is a purpose behind this evilness. And I think that there is, to this realm that we live in, Earth, there is more than what we are told. And once you start to inquire and be, what would the word, like, I'm going to use the out formation and keep it out, guard myself, and just use information. And I want to learn and see what I can figure out. What you say is nice, but I want to prove it to myself. So, and this is, I think, an art that has been lost, like figuring out. And you can go basic as the shape of the world, meaning like your experience and the explanation to what you see. And if there is that scientific experiment that could prove or disprove it, people don't think about that. And you go into viruses with the experience of COVID. For me, it was, we have a trust issue here now. Like, I did not go along with the COVID game because I developed a good sense of distrust really early in the game.
Yeah.
And that was just by a chance, because I saw a commercial that didn't add up to what they said. Like, what?
Well, there's, yeah.
What? Like, what? Didn't we talk about 2 weeks? What's going on here? And everything seems to be orchestrated. Like a play is being, and we're talking about information, outformation, sovereignty of your thinking process of what you see. Do you know? Have you noticed that this is like history? Whose story is it? His story? Is it my story? Is it my history? What's going on here? And when there's great confusion, there's few options. And for some people, like, wow, finally, I'm out of it. I cannot go back into trust. That was broken. I keep living my life with trust. I do things at the highest, most possible way when I share it from the subjective to the objective. MeZé is an example. If you like it, great. If you don't, also great. I keep on doing it. I don't know who's going to come through the door.
Right.
It's like you said, an offering. Yeah, in a way, it gives purpose.
Yeah.
You know, I have kids. That's one purpose. I think it's one of the tricks of nature. You make kids, gives you purpose in life. Everything you're doing exactly the same, but now you have purpose. Or you have a business that has a worldview or infused into manifesting a better state of being. You know, so you can be very talented, but if you work in commercials and you use this talent to lure people to get stuff that they don't need and don't even want, but suddenly they want it, I have a problem with that. In like it goes to a certain point, but then it falls. It doesn't hold the water of life. So there's a lot of stuff that you assume, and many people assume about things that actually don't add up and don't hold the water of life when you put it into close testing. You know, you're challenging the concept, you know, of what you believe or what you were told or what you see. And I think it's a very healthy relationship not to trust, and then to go through the hard, sometimes the challenge of finding out in order to care. Because if you don't find out, how can you care? How can you put your heart into it? You know, like in Hebrew, caring, it's lשים lev, which it means to put the heart into what you do. So in order for that, you need to develop an attitude towards it. So MeZé is that. And in that space, I'm like trying to do the best I can every day, because it's mostly service. And you gotta love service if you work in restaurant, because you're serving people. And it's almost like the ones who used to fill up the tank in the gasoline in the past, like Oregon. Somebody comes, fill up your tank.
Yeah.
It's the same. Just a little bit more. There's a little bit more to do than just that. But in a sense, you fill up the tank and they go. They don't stay for long.
Yeah, they're gone. Well, so I do want to dig in a little bit into that, because first of all, I definitely hear what you're saying. There's a lot of kind of conjecture about, you know, what's really going on behind the scenes. I have no question that there's some weird shit going on. All right. There's a lot of lobbyists, and I feel like we are taking with greed, whether that's sort of like a hungry ghost mentality, or if it's, you know, just the way that capitalism operates without checks and people being true to themselves.
It's written in history.
Well, and it's also, and if you look at the way that history has developed, it is a really bloody, greedy, terrible mess. So, and I really appreciate also what you're saying about, you know, that it's really important for us to come to our own conclusions based on our own subjective observation and like what it is that's part of the reason why we moved up here from LA, because I just wanted to get away from the grid and the morass of it all. Like, we really wanted to be closer to nature and be able to connect more deeply to the land where we live, which we are doing. It's great, and I love it here. But you know, not to say there's anything wrong with living anywhere else. It's just the choice that I made so that I would have a stronger sense of my own personal subjective reality versus what's coming at me all the time.
Places that you live does, because, you know, they say where you are, you meet it from here, from here, from here. So the general sense of things, if it's above you, it will elevate you. If it's underneath you,
it'll
you're
bring
gonna
you
have a
down.
more challenge to stay and to push. You know, if you take downtown LA or San Francisco and all that's going on, you put your base there and say, I'm such a positive man, I'm gonna lift up the street. You'll find out that it's more challenging than just, you know, like that.
I you know, living proof right here of that. I'm very sensitive. Sorry, it's not fucking popular to say you're sensitive, but I'm very sensitive. I'm an actor. I'm empathic. Like, you know, and I think for me, a lot of Los Angeles, you know, they say it's like a kind of a soul-sucking place, and it definitely can be that. It's not like that for everyone, and people learn to navigate it. But for me, it was really challenging to, I think, to meet my mission, if you will, in that place. And so that's part of the reason why I moved up here, was so that I would have a better sense of self, a stronger sense of who I am and what I'm about and what I'm discerning from my own observations. You know, and it's also very much about like intention. You know, you mentioned being skeptical and like really not trusting, which sounds like being paranoid, that's not what you're saying, I don't think. I think what you're saying is like, don't trust what you're hearing, come to your own conclusions, find your own truth, trust yourself, trust your heart, really think about things and like come to your own conclusions so that you can act from what is the best for you and those around you.
It's also, I completely agree. And the process depends on how deep was the experience of distrust. For me, it was very deep, and I realized that none of what I was told, I should assume as true, and I have to re-examine all of it.
Yeah,
going all the way back. And I actually found in recorded history a lot of stuff like when did we the people became the enemy of government, aka District of Columbia in Washington DC. It happened in 1933 with a proclamation of banking emergency. And in paragraph 5b, they amended the fact that now their courts and their policy is now on land also, and it's called booting. And before that, it was only sea, prize. When a pirate catch a ship, it's his prize. It's under his jurisdiction. But booting on land was not in the jurisdiction of sea. Now everything is under sea, including the land, what's called continental USA. And it happened with a proclamation of a president in 1933 under the disguise of a banking emergency.
You're trying to get me in trouble. I'm getting in trouble. They're coming for us. Just kidding. Go on.
Where they took all the gold, the Federal Reserve banks took all the gold from the people because the president said that it's not allowed to hoard gold. So only the bank allowed to hoarding gold. Yeah. So this mental state, which we call a hoarderer, usually if you go outside his house, there will be piles of junk, right? Stuff he doesn't need. He has more than he needs, right? Forever. So we have this apparatus. This is the parasites. Why do you need $400 million trillion? For what reason? What's the purpose, right? And when you go back in history and relearn, the events happened. You cannot take Pearl Harbor and say it didn't happen. It happened. But what led to it, that's a different story, and that's very debatable. And when you start to see patterns in history, you can start to assume stuff. But don't forget that assuming just say that you're just assuming. But when you bring a document from the Congress, library, that states that FDR proclaimed on the 5th of June, I think it was, or March, 5th of March, after his inauguration, 5th of March, 1933, that you're not allowed to, there is a banking emergency, or like a national emergency, banking emergency, which is your constitution, your rights, now put aside. Now we have only what's called executive orders. And it's all written in history, but none of us anymore knows the real story, or the story that actually makes a difference, not what we are told. Because the winner write history, but now I know that I should assume that most of it actually is not true. Some of it is because the event happened. But what led to the event usually is already hidden. Why? Because the one who won, and in wars, everybody loses, but there's a few that do win. It's called institution, banks, people who are not involved but gain a lot. So war is very lucrative. It's a big business. And relearning history, and we're still doing it, 2024.
Of course.
We're still doing it. So I'm like, okay, you cannot apply reason that doesn't add up to explain the phenomena. Sorry, we need to look for other reasons. And in Hebrew, it just things fits a bit better because English is so, it just describes almost arbitrary. There is no, in Hebrew, everything is in the letters, in the word. So when you speak action. And this action is literally almost like physical action. So there is it's a creative language that comes from the fire of creation, of the action. And English is just describes things. So many things just doesn't make sense, but that's the way you call it. Because spelling is different than signs and omens. In Hebrew, otiyot means signs and omens. In English, it means spelling. So I cast a spell on you. So we forgot English because we were never taught English properly. So everybody has concepts of the world, and they'll go and raise a flag for somebody half a world away just because they've seen it on its screen. And it's not that there is no suffering. There is suffering.
Yeah.
But let the locals deal with it. And the parasite apparatus operates on a world scale. Why? Because the problems are always local. And they will never figure it out unless you zoom out and see the big picture. And only distrust in what you are told can bring you enough momentum to go and find out what the fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a hobby, it became a life skill if you want to continue and thrive in a world that doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. So
Yeah.
how do you put them together? And here we are, we're expanding MeZé, right? Although I'm thinking it's like fucking crazy to put so much money now to that. But the opportunity presented itself. I'm an optimistic guy. With everything I know, I'm still optimistic because I think what it entails knowing is refining yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like you adding nano to your filters, you know, all the knowledge you can collect and synergize and create a mash that can let the water of life go through and hold the toxics. So more knowledge, it's more nano part. You got smaller and smaller in your filter because it's the resolution of your going after the information. You're trying to find out what the fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the way you are. You become this way. And then you cannot go back, like in Matrix, right? You take this pill, go back to your steak. Take this pill, you cannot go back.
Yeah.
There is no going back.
That's
where I am.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like the steak. I mean, I like the red pill.
I still like the steak.
But you can still eat the steak.
But now I just make sure I know that the cow, where it's coming from.
Know where the cow comes from. And thank the cow for its life. As far as like the banking emergency declaration and the creation of the Federal Reserve, there's a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. That
with this one.
I actually interviewed that guy for a documentary that has yet to be released. And, so I'm aware of like
I follow him.
That whole ploy. Suffice it to say, reality is not all it appears to be. And what's really important is cutting closer and more in touch with who I am in my own heart from my own observations truly. Mm-hmm. And distilling that down further and further and filtering it out, as you're saying. And so going back to one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is the importance of intention with making food. Like there's an importance of intention about how you consume food and like looking at, well, what are the good ingredients that I can eat? Because the reality is, even though In-N-Out sounds great and it's delicious, if you went to the vegan restaurant or the really good restaurant across the street, you're still going to get fed. You're still going to be full. It might not be as sexy as In-N-Out because you've seen so many advertisements or whatever. People love to go there, or McDonald's, but you're still going to be fed. And even if you really wanted to go to In-N-Out, but instead you made the quote unquote sacrifice to go to the really healthy restaurant, to go to MeZé, you're still going to feel really good afterwards. You're going to be full. And then you're also going to feel better afterwards because you had an intention to eat something that was good for you. And one of the things that I think is fascinating about you that you've shared with me, and is also like there's a poster at MeZé that says something about like we put love in every bite, right?
There is a poem by a poem that was by a guy that wrote when we were doing street markets. He offered to trade a falafel sandwich to a poem.
Oh, that's
so
where
I
it came
said,
from.
I like it, but I'm going to give you the falafel first and then you can write your poem.
Uh-huh.
So I gave him the falafel and then that's what came out.
So
I can talk about how I developed this experience of the energy that you work with food is very present in the experience of people's eating.
Yes. Well, that and also I recall you told me a story one time about like a cooking experience that you had where there was like one night that you were feeling really off and everybody reported back to you that the food was really off. That's
where I literally experienced that.
That's where the origin story of realizing how important it was, the intentionality of the cooking process. So I want to talk about that. And also, by the way, it's something that I notice when I cook. I'm a good cook according to my wife and other people who eat my food. And very much of that is really good ingredients, but it's also the intentionality with which I cook. I go into a meditative state while I'm cooking. I'm really focused on the food and being part with the food. Like now Christine's cooking more, which is great, but sometimes she likes to talk to me while I'm cooking and I'm like, you can't, I love you, but please let me focus, because like it's important. Also, I'm terrible at multitasking, but really, like, it's about the intentionality.
It's
so
important.
If you could share that,
there is
that
this
story.
in the Chef's Table on Netflix. I don't watch much Netflix, but Chef's Table, I really like this series. It's
Okay.
somebody was doing a chapter on very famous, unknown chefs around the world, and the one that most struck me was a Zen lady chef. She's been a nun for, I don't know, forever, maybe 45 years.
Yeah.
And she cooks food simple, but the experience, according to what people were sharing, and it follows her. Usually they went to her monastery, showing her cooking there, and then they followed. She's asked to come outside sometime to cook. Probably people pay a good amount of money for that and for the pleasure. But her food is about, it's holistic. It's the most holistic experience one can have. What does that really mean, right? And the story I told you about, so she's like, that's again like a testimony that there is more to things than what we are told or what we experience. And one of the reasons with industrial food or anything that goes through machine, if you ever were into energy fields, and I was part of my life studying that, through like a healing method I was studying with using my eyelashes and my hands and pendulum. So when organic material that used to be life go through a machine with electrical circuits and metal and stuff like that, it literally loses its formation, its life energy. So the matter is still there, but it doesn't have the energy or the electricity of life, right? So, and microwave does the same. And the simple experiment, microwave the water you give your plant, 10 days is dead. Why is that? It's the same water. No, you killed it because it used to have life in it, in potential, as an arrangement of molecules, as shapes, sacred geometry shapes unseen that can manifest into intricate life.
Yeah.
So you kill it with your machines and then you feed it. So there's nothing there. It tricks the body for nutrients, but there is nothing there. So it wants more and more and more of it, which is still tricking it. So people get fat. Why? Because it's all toxic, and the body stores fat is a storage for stuff it cannot send out. So basically fat is full of toxics because it just seals it with fat around it. It doesn't seep into the body, into the cellular environment, with all the cellular water and everything. So it's kind of like fat people just are full of toxic. That's why they're so fat, because they keep eating stuff that the body cannot eliminate, but it has to isolate. So it creates fat and isolate. And sugar is, if you can eat a lot of butter.
We're no fat shaming here. That's
not at all. I have nothing against that.
Nothing against. That's just how it goes, and he's just explaining how it goes. And
in Ethiopia, when I traveled in Ethiopia, a fat woman was the highlights of that, was to be the noble when I traveled there. That completely different way of looking at life. When women were so big and so luscious, and like when men were like, just different concept of things, right?
But anyway, going along with what you're saying, you're saying that using machines in order to
just
process food,
it robs the life.
It robs the life
force. Simple as that. Same as moving water and forcing water to move somewhere robs the life force of the water. It's a living thing. What you drink to stay alive.
Yeah,
it's pretty damn simple, but you can use simple axioms to understand deep things about things. So it's pretty obvious that machines that doesn't have life, it's an application that forces usually some kind of action on the dynamic of what's natural, right? So what's the price? The price is usually the life force,
right?
Because it's at outformation. Life grows from the inside. Most of it from the inside, almost all of it. You grow from the inside. We all grow from the inside. We don't take a hand and just stick it to us. And it's just.
That'd be cool though, if we could do that.
There's some points there.
Frankenstein,
Yeah.
I mean? Just I actually would like to have 2 more arms.
Machinery.
If I could just grab them and stick them onto my fucking, then I could think about it. The juggling acts I could do.
Grab 2 tits and 2.
Yeah.
do the same time.
Whatever.
I think it's critical to understand the difference between what seems to be so promising, the whole AI scenario and robotics and all that stuff. When we talk about life that grows from the inside and everything that I just mentioned now, it's an outside application. It's already a shaped thing that needs to force his way on the dynamic of what's natural in life on Earth. So with food, you said it, you need to go into meditation. I do it like driving more because I have so many years in the kitchen. But I'm under good mood. I usually sing. I love to put music. Most of the learning new songs, I do it in the kitchen
while cooking.
I love it. Yeah, or I'll listen to a good talk. Something that puts you in a good energy.
A good podcast, maybe Lunacy.
An A game. Good one. We like. My manager says, I hope I can bring my A game today. So, well, it is a choice.
Yeah.
And if you think somebody else is bringing it, then you might have a problem when it's not there.
Right.
So you better develop an attitude of a choice. I can choose this way.
And that, my friends, is an excellent place for us to end part 1 of a 2-parter with my dear friend Alon Greenstein. Tune in next week for the conclusion of this amazing interview with Alon Greenstein of MeZé. And if you'd like to support this program, please go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast. Your support makes a huge difference for me and us as a community. So thank you for your support. See you next week, everybody. Much love.